Hi everyone, welcome back to our Mist AI-driven SD-WAN configuration guides series of videos. My name is Shai Donovich and I'm solution architect here at Juniper on the Mist AI-driven enterprise team. And this is going to be part 2 configuration, and in this section, which is section 1, we'll discuss sites, WAN Edge configuration templates. How do you create sites, how we configure configuration templates, which will allow us to onboard devices, hubs and spokes based on the use cases we have specified in part 1. If you haven't watched part 1, I encourage you to go back and watch section 1 through 3 in part 1. And with that, let's get started. So if we look at this topology here, I just took one slice of the example topology and use cases we have described in part 1. So LAN 0 is going to be one segment here on the spoke on the left, site 1 LAN 0, and we would want this host to be sending traffic and communicating with hub A LAN 0 host in hub A. Obviously, we would need to onboard at least 2 devices just to start with, as a simple example, hub and spoke, one hub and one spoke. And then we will form an IPsec tunnels, 2 IPsec tunnels from spoke to hub, which will use WAN 0 and WAN 1, both of these underlay links. As we see here, the hub has a static IP 10.100.0.2 on WAN 0 and 10.100.1.2 on WAN 1. And the spoke, because mostly you would need the hub to be on a static IP, because in order to form the IPsec tunnels, the spoke would need to initiate an IPsec tunnel through NAT-T towards the hub. So it would need to know on which IP the hub WAN links are reachable, the underlay links. On the spoke though, we would use DHCP because these are going to be the most common scenarios where you deploy spoke devices. Again, in my lab here, I'm using VSRXs. And so step 1 is going to be creating a hub site and a spoke site through the Mist UI management console. And step 2, we're going to create what we refer to a hub profile, which specifies some parameters on the WAN links and the other LAN segments, etc. And step 3, we're gonna also need to create a WAN Edge template. WAN Edge template under Mist refers to templates that are applied on sites where you would deploy your spokes. And similarly to the hub, we'll need to configure hub interfaces, select overlays to know which overlay we want the spoke to use in order to connect to the hub. So step 1 is site creation. As an example, we're going to create a site named site-1. And really there, as you will see in a second, there's going to be, a lot of parameters you can configure under site in Mist. But, the minimum you would need is to set an address. In this case, I'll use the Sunnyvale headquarter address for my sites. You would also need to include a root password, and also you would need to enable or check the box of saying, yeah, you do have license or license exists for WAN Edge application visibility. Application visibility is using the App ID database on the SRX platforms, and it is required for not only visibility but also for steering traffic for SD-WAN applications. Similarly, we'll define another site. We'll name it hub-A to be correlating to what we have in our topologies. And again, just a quick root password as a minimum configuration and application visibility. So now let's switch to the Mist UI and I'll show you how to configure this. So here we are logged into the Mist UI, and I assume you all have an account created In this case, I have created a demo organization named Mist-AID Live. If you need to know how to create an organization, please watch the other segments on creating accounts and organizations. But really, this is the default organization, and in this case, it has one site, and the site name is primary site. If you go under organization and then site configuration, you would see that we have one site, primary site. You can either use this site or we can go ahead and create additional sites. In any case, we would need to create additional sites for our topology because as you recall, we have 3 sites and 1 hub. So it's a minimum of 4 sites. So I will go ahead and create newly sites, and I'll also show you how to delete a site if we don't want to use a primary site. So to create a site, you click on create site and you give it a name. In our case, we named the site as site-1. It doesn't really matter what the name you would refer to. You would put an address. And again, as a minimum, we would need to go ahead and include root password so we can always know which password Mist would use in order to set the root password on your devices, on the WAN Edge devices. So I will include a password here, and also it is advisable to approve or click the box of saying, yeah, there is a license, or I have a license on my SRX devices for application ID or AppTrack license. And once you are happy with the settings, you click on save and the site is created. By the way, since we're not going to be using primary site, just for the sake of simplicity, we'll go ahead and delete the site. In order to delete the site, you would need to type the name of the site, and then you can click on delete. So in this case, we would have then one site. In order to create an additional site, you can either go ahead and click on create site in order to create your hub, or you can select your site and say clone site. And if you clone site, all the parameters from the previous created site will be cloned. The only thing you would need to use is to put the site name, which is hub A, and the address of our site. And as you can see here, this settings that we used to that we had on site 1 is already included, and also our root password for the WAN Edge devices is included as well. By the way, you can have a separate password for the switch for wired devices or switching EX platforms, but that's a different segment, different video. So click on save, and we can see that we have 2 sites created. We can, make sure maybe hub A would be our first site, so you can sort it by whichever way you'd like to sort here. Okay, so next what we need to do is to create our hub profile and spoke profile with the minimum parameters that will require to onboard the hub and create this overlay connectivity. So here's how a hub profile would look like. Just the bare minimum without specifically connecting any LAN devices at this point. The reason I'm showing you this is because I want to go step by step and then add to the profile as we go. So we would define the interface name. We call it WAN 0, but really you can choose whatever name you'd like, DSL, LTE, MPLS, INET, whichever you want. I mean, I'm choosing to refer to the interfaces by the 1.0, 1.1, or if I have more interfaces, 1.2, 1.3, etc. So interface name, then the interface itself. The first interface I'll be using on my VSRX is GE000. The IP address, this is a /24 in my lab here, so 110.100.0.2, 0 stands for 10, the third octet. Is going to be on the hub, and then my gateway IP on this interface of this ISP1 router is 10.100.0.1. Similarly, WAN1, it's going to be G001, specify the interface, and very similar IP. The only thing is the third octet is referencing in my lab to show WAN1, and so it's 10.100.1. And let's switch to the Mist UI, and we'll show you how to configure the hub profile. Okay, so if we click under organization, we can see we can navigate to hub profiles page. We have no hub profiles listed here because we have not created yet a hub profile. Just know that although it says beta here, hub profile is a fully released feature, GA, part of our solution. Sometimes within Mist, we see beta tag for specific features or capabilities that are not yet fully released. So inside hub profile, we'll have something I'll show you in the next slides that is not yet released. This is why you would see a beta tag from the upper level navigation, but a hub profile is a fully released features. So if we click on create profile, we'll be prompted to give our profile a name. I'll just name it as we named the hub, and you click on create. And as I've mentioned, there's many parameters here that we'll be configuring as we go. But as a minimum, in order to have a site onboarded and a hub device onboarded, you would need to configure your WAN interfaces. And here's what I mentioned. We have a feature that is a Secure Edge Connect, which is essentially part of our SaaS solution that I'll cover in a different video. But for now, to create a WAN interface, we would go and click on Add WAN Interface, and we'll be prompted to enter our details from the previous slide. Okay, so just so it would be easier for us to follow, I've placed the different parameters as we mentioned for WAN interfaces on the right hand side here. So the first thing is we want to give it a name. As I mentioned, I'm using WAN 0 and WAN 1 for the different interfaces. You'll have an option here to define what type of interface it is, if you're using DSL or even LTE, but for now we'll go with the straight simple Ethernet interfaces. And in my hub VSRX, G000 is for WAN 0, and the IP address is going to be 10.100.02, and it is a /24 segment, and the gateway is, as mentioned, is 100.0.1. There are other options here that we'll cover in a second in a different video on source NAT, pool, or interface. But for now, we can just click on Add. And we could see the new interface 1.0 has been added to the list. We'll go ahead similarly and add the second interface. It's going to be G001. And at this point, we have the two interfaces. And again, as I mentioned, that's the minimum configuration you would need in order to onboard a hub into Mist solution. So click on Save. And if you go back to your hub profile list, you can see that we have hub_A, which is our first hub profile. At this point, we have not yet assigned any devices to this hub profile because we have not onboarded any devices. But I'll show you in the next video how you onboard a device and assign it to a specific site and assign a specific hub profile to it. Okay, so next thing we need to do is to create our spoke profile, so we can we'll be able to onboard the spoke device as well. A spoke profile under Mist UI, it is referred to WAN Edge Templates. The reason is WAN Edge, it's the, overall solution for Mist for our WAN Edge devices, because we can have either hub and spoke profiles or standalone. So as a general reference to WAN devices, we name them WAN Edge templates or WAN Edge profiles. So very similar here. 1.0 is going to be G00 and 1.1 is going to be G001. And the only difference is for spokes, as I've mentioned, it's going to be DHCP, because these ISP1 and ISP2 routers in my lab, there are also DHCP servers. So they will be hanging list IPs for all my spokes in the lab. And again, for the hub spoke profile, we'll associate an overlay endpoint, which is essentially will allow Mist to create overlay IPsec tunnels from WAN 0 to WAN 1 on the hub. So as you can see here in the picture, we have two overlay tunnels, two IPsec overlay tunnels. Okay, so next we'll create a spoke template that will be able to onboard a spoke device and associate to this hub. So if we click under organization, under our WAN options here, you can see the last one is WAN Edge Templates. Click on WAN Edge Templates. And similarly to hub profiles, we have no WAN Edge templates created yet. So I would click on create a template and we can give it a name. And then the reason I'm using the name spokes is because you will see next that I'm actually going to be using one single template to onboard multiple spokes. That's the power of Mist automation, that we use one template and different variables in order to associate a template with multiple sites. And in this case, we obviously need to select spoke because we are creating a WAN Edge template that will be associated with a spoke device that is connecting to hubs. The standalone is, as mentioned, if you want to manage a standalone WAN Edge router security device under your sites. Click on create. And here's the spoke or WAN Edge template profile. Again, there are many parameters here that will need to be defined. But for now, just for simplicity reasons, I'll just go ahead and add only the WAN interfaces as we did with the hub profiles. Click on add WAN. So WAN 0, we give it a name. And similarly to what I had on the hub profile, G00 is going to be associated with my WAN 0 interface. And in this case, as we mentioned, it's going to be DHCP. And here's where we would need to click on add overlay hub endpoints. And we would associate the WAN 0 on the spoke with hub A WAN 0 interface. So essentially, it's basically saying an IPsec tunnel will be created between WAN 0 interface on the spoke to WAN 0 interface on the hub. Click on add. And you can see the first interface created. Same goes for the second interface. And for G001, which is our WAN 1 interface, we click on add overlay hub endpoints, and we will associate the hub endpoints with hub A WAN 1. Click on add. And as we can see, we have our two WAN interfaces, WAN 0 and WAN 1, and we can go ahead and click on save. Go back to our WAN Edge template lists. We can see that we have one WAN Edge template created. No sites are yet associated with this template. Once we onboard sites, I'll show you how to associate a device to a template. Okay, so next we'll onboard our hub device and the spoke, assign the templates, and we'll check connectivity. And with that, see you in the next segment. Thanks for watching.